What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here. Gonna be talking about wide receiver rankings, my early wide receiver rankings for 2022. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You're going to stick around. I'm going to be bringing you tons of off-season content. February, I'm starting my Dynasty Buy Low series again. Just giving that a little bit of time, kind of taking it slow here as the season's ending. Want to give you guys some content. You guys have supported the last video really well, the top 24 overall rankings. If you haven't seen that one, check that one out. But yeah, so I wanted to give you guys some videos. And I already had this mostly prepped, so I was like, I could fire this up. But yeah, kind of just taking it slow here, and then probably February I'll really hop into things, maybe even late January, and really start putting out a ton of content. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to stick around for all that. Like, comment if you have any questions or comments. Any comments you put down in the comment section, I will respond to. Another thing I want to mention, last video, we had a few people who said they would be down to do a mock draft. If anyone wants to do a 2022 mock draft with me and some other subs, some other followers, all that good stuff, respond down in the comments. I can get you guys in there. Hopefully we can get enough to do like 12-man or something like that, or maybe even, if people have multiple teams or something like that. But that would be sick. One thing I wanted to mention too before I start this ranking video, Calvin Ridley probably is not going to be in my rankings just because I don't know what's going on with the situation. If he's going to be back next year, I would anticipate him probably being back, but like I said, I just don't know. So he is excluded from this video, but assuming he's back and everything's all right with him, he would definitely be one of the top 20 wide receivers. Without much further ado, though, let's hop right into it. Our number one wide receiver is none other than Davante Adams. He averaged, what am I doing? Put that up there, 17.7 points per game last year. Had a great season. My number two wide receiver is Cooper Kupp. What am I doing? Cobb or Kupp? It's a little difficult just because I got the list of all my players up here, so it's kind of on the keyboard. But okay, Cooper Kupp is my wide receiver two, and let's talk about why. I don't need to keep putting it every time now. Okay, let's talk about why I have Kupp at 2 and Davante Adams at 1. This is just because I'm projecting right now. I think he's going back to the Packers. I see Aaron Rodgers probably returning. Depends how the end of their season goes, though. A month from now, we could be very easily saying Packers get bounced in the first round or something like that happens, that Rodgers is leaving, Davante is getting franchise tagged, or maybe he's leaving as well. Or, who knows what's happening. And so it's like they can be very different situations, and him and Cooper Kupp are very similar already. I just think Davante Adams is going to give you basically what he did last year, close to it most of the years you draft him, barring injury, from a per-game basis, and even has more touchdown upside to go. I think Cooper Kupp, we basically have seen his greatest season. I'd be very hard-pressed to see him have a better year than he had this year just because he was so ridiculous. And so, yeah, I just see him coming down to earth a little bit in the touchdown and yardage department. I think at Davante Adams just has a little bit more staying power up there. But they're both, I have no problem if someone wants to take one or the other. I have no problem if someone wants to take Tyreek Hill over both of these guys. He's been a guy who's been extremely productive for fantasy for years and years, finishing in the top, 2, 3 for a lot of years. And he just has that huge game potential. The Chiefs were just not as good on offense this year, honestly. Mahomes struggled for some stretches of the year. Tyreek was a little banged up, especially towards the end of the year, at that heel in that last game. Stuff like that brings down your per-game average. But we still know that the talent that Tyreek has, the speed he possesses, all of those factors, which make him, just an absolute stud. This one might be a surprise, maybe not if you've seen another video. I have Jamar Chase at 4. Reason being, he did all of this, finished at 15.5 points per game last year, did all that. I think he had 124 targets or 125 targets. The kid is just special. He's got that A.J. Brown-like ability in the open field, although he's got maybe a little bit more speed. Not as big as A.J. Brown, but just that ability to just kind of get in the open field, get past one guy or make one guy miss or overpower him, and then just boom. It's just, he breaks people's angles. He just takes it. I think he's such a superior talent, and the reason I have him over the next guy on this list, honestly, is mainly due to quarterback. That was one of the main reasons I have Justin Jefferson at 5. Might seem way too low for a guy like Justin Jefferson. Again, if you want to take Justin Jefferson over Tyreek Hill even, I have no problem with it. But yeah, so Justin Jefferson had an absolute ton of targets last year. If Adam Thielen or something like that leaves, I could see Justin Jefferson jumping a few of these guys, maybe even my wide receiver 3. Um, but yeah, don't do this as I don't like Justin Jefferson, because I do. I think you got him as a first round pick in my rankings. I'm very high on him this year, and moving forward in Dynasty, I think the top 2 picks in Dynasty are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Um, Jonathan Taylor certainly in that mix as well, but those top 3 players in there. Um, but yeah, it's just, I think when you look at target wise, Justin Jefferson's getting a ton of targets, which I think he will get going moving forward, and he's a great route runner. He's going to continue to get open, but I would prefer Joe Burrow to Kirk Cousins at the end of the day. And I think Jamar Chase's targets will go up. Okay, so number 7 is no, not 7. We're on 6. Number 6 is Deebo Samuel. Deebo was an absolute stud this year. In the games he wasn't getting it done on through the air, a lot of times he was getting it done on the ground, which is obviously extremely beneficial. Just the consistency he had was ridiculous. The reason I have him down here at 6, it might seem a little low for him. I don't know where other people are ranking him, to be honest. I don't really look at other people's rankings, just kind of look at mine. But the reason I have him at 6 is I'm just worried about injury, and just I don't think he'll get quite this usage again. I think Kittle will be a bigger part of the offense probably with he's healthy for a full season. I thought Ayuk would be more involved this year than he was, although Deebo Samuel was a dynasty buy low last year, so make sure to tune in for that series. Just another hit from there. You'd be happy if you had him now if you bought him last year. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with Deebo. It's just I worry a little bit about injury risk is all. But when he's out there and he's playing, he's an absolute stud, and he's consistent with the wide receiver position, which is not something you can stay for many players. Stefon Diggs is who I have next. Diggs averaged 13.8 points per game this last season. Not a ton, but still a very good wide receiver. One of those guys who gets the targets in their offense, has a talented quarterback that's going to be there with him. We saw 2 years ago, led the league in receptions and touchdowns, or not receptions and touchdowns, excuse me, receptions and yards. He still has that type of finish in his bag, and the touchdown numbers could increase with those target loads. 8, A.J. Brown. This one might be a surprise, but I think people just are too low on A.J. Brown, to be honest with you. Only averaged 11.5 points per game in his last year, but these are, as I said, my 2022 rankings, not my 2021 rankings. If A.J. Brown can stay healthy, he will dominate for fantasy football, and he's played most of the games the previous 2 years. Missed a big chunk of the year this year, though. Several games. I think he missed 3, 4, 5 games at least. I know he had that 3-game stretch on IR, and he missed a few games earlier in the year with dealing with injury. But the reason I have him at this point is because we've seen other wide receivers around there, even with Julio. He's the one getting the targets. I thought he would either way, but he's a receiver who, if he ever has a 170 target year, he could very easily finish as wide receiver 1 and just gets the ball in his hand. Is just a problem for defenses. I think this per game number is just lower just because he left games injured and things like that. But he did have some games where he just wasn't as productive as he usually was. But usually he's a guy who's consistent and can consistently find the end zone, which is absolutely dynamite for fantasy football. 9, CeeDee Lamb. He would probably be a little bit lower, to be honest with you. I was really high on CD coming into the year. That was another hit that we had from all of our videos. But I just, at the end of the day, I worry about the reason he's this high is honestly because of the quarterback position that he's in. He's got a good quarterback who's going to be there next year. Amari Cooper could potentially be gone with the way his contract is. If that happens, I'd be very excited for CD. Probably retain this 9 spot or maybe even pass A.J. Brown. But who knows if that's going to happen at this point in the season. Let's see, my number 10 player. These next 2 are difficult to rank because you don't know what the quarterback position is going to be like on their teams next 2 years. But Deontay Johnson was excellent this year. Another guy whose provides consistency at the wide receiver position, which is absolutely huge. Another guy, Chris Godwin, also averaged 13.8 points per game. And these are all half-point PPR points per game as well, and half-point PPR rankings, if I didn't mention that. Both these guys, is very the same boat. Deontay was extremely consistent. Chris Godwin's another guy who's consistent because of receptions and targets. Deontay just got a ton of targets every week. If Big Ben, another quarterback, comes in and his target numbers come down, probably a little bit, and that could be very concerning, although I do still think he is the best wide receiver on that team by a big chunk. I just think the ability to throw deep will involve guys more like Chase Claypool, and the less checkdowns, though. Yeah, like I'm saying, if there's less checkdowns, that could turn into more targets for other wide receivers, things like that. So the offense thing is just going to change a lot in general. Chris Godwin, if he remains in Tampa Bay, he will be a wide receiver one for sure for me. But yeah, we just don't know where he's going to go. I kind of expect them to try to keep him if they can, but I just don't know what they're going to be able to do cap wise. But I kind of see him coming back. Keenan Allen, who I have at number 12. Keenan averaged 12.2 last year. I think he kind of had an off year. I think he'll be ready to go next year. I buy into Justin Herbert, and yeah, I just don't know if Mike Williams, excuse me, and Mike Evans, or no, Mike Williams and Austin Eckler both stay healthy and still get all those targets for the entire year. I don't know if I see that happening another year. That's why I have him. So there. Mike Evans is who I have up next. Evans, 14.1 points per game this year. And like if Chris Godwin doesn't come back to the Bucks, Mike Evans shoots up this list for sure. Another year older for some of their other weapons as well. I mean, if Mike Evans gets another year older as well, but I still think he's in that prime range of his career. He's at 1,000 yards every year in his career, 14 touchdowns, I believe, double digits last 2 years. So just a stud and can provide tons of touchdowns, although he doesn't provide the same consistency as some other wide receivers as well. You got to consider that when you are drafting. Okay, so my number 14 player, T. Higgins. Saw him play really well when he was on the field. I think he's going to in line for a strong year, average 13 points per game. Great player. This is also kind of the case against Jamar Chase, to be honest with you. If T. Higgins is a great next year, Jamar Chase's target numbers might not go up, but I still think, I just think Jamar Chase is just so talented, his target numbers will have to go up a little bit. Maybe he doesn't get 170, but I think he could go from 125 to 145, and that would be a big time increase for him. That's, what is that? 17% increase in target, something like that. So even the touchdown numbers come down, stuff like that. I just think, there's a lot to go around there. I could eventually see them running the ball less if they can get some better offensive linemen in there, which might sound counterintuitive, but I think Joe Burrow is the most hit quarterback in football this year, and I see them running the ball as a way to kind of alleviate some of that stress from him. Jalen Waddle is who I have up next. Another guy who could be higher by the time the season starts. They got Flores out of there, which, long term probably not the best move for them, but a good move for Tua. And I think that connection with him and Waddle can strengthen over the offseason, and he could come out and have another dynamite year. The only thing I hope with Jalen Waddle, I love that they use him around the line of scrimmage, give him all those reception numbers. I wish they would utilize him a little bit more down the field, give him some more average depth of target, some more air yards, that type of thing, just because his speed is so much of a weapon. I think he could be utilized a little bit better, to be honest with you. DK Metcalf, another guy who could move up these rankings, to be honest with you. But once you have his quarterback, if Russ leaves, he'll slide down these rankings. So could go a variety of ways. But DK is a guy I think he's going to have a major bounce back. Also Tyler Lockett. I think him and both of those players are going to be great values come draft season. You want to stay tuned about those guys for sure. But yeah, Russ missed time. He had some solid games when Russ was out, but then Russ came back, and the entire offense in general struggled, except for maybe Tyler Lockett. But there were some rough games when Russ came back from that finger injury so quickly. And I just think, you have them all come back and they're healthy. I think they'll all put up much, much better fantasy years, and we'll see Russ be a great player again. Okay, so let's see. We are at 17. DJ Moore. Another guy who doesn't have his quarterback set. If he can get an upgrade at quarterback, let's say, so my theory, or not, I don't want to say theory, I guess, but some of my reasoning I've been thinking about recently is with the Brian Flores firing. Now, so Brian Flores, apparently Deshaun Watson wanted to go to Miami because of Brian Flores. Now Brian Flores is out of there. Maybe he wants to go to another team that Flores has. I don't know how that'll all work out. But it means Tua is going to stay likely in Miami, and Miami might be out of the Deshaun Watson trade, although a lot of that will depend on his legal status and his case in February. But, I think the Carolina Panthers are the type of team that could just go out and pay everything for Deshaun Watson. And if that happens, and then you've got, DJ Moore instantly becomes a wide receiver one in fantasy football. He's extremely talented. We saw that over the first 4 weeks of the season when Sam Darnold was playing competently. DJ Moore was dominating for fantasy. He's extremely talented. He just needs a quarterback who can get him the ball routinely and in the end zone, and he can dominate for fantasy. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. 18, Brandon Cooks, a guy who's just disrespected every year. I disrespected him last year, if I'm going to be honest with you, mainly because of the pieces around him. But we saw Davis Mills be successful, and Brandon Cooks was far better in the games that Davis Mills played. So I'm really excited about Brandon Cooks, especially if Davis Mills is the quarterback for Houston 2022, which at this point it looks likely. Next up, Hunter Renfrow. The reason I have Renfrow here is just because I think Waller missed all those games. Obviously they didn't have a plethora of other receiving options as well. I just think they probably add some kind of receiver through the draft or through free agency. Darren Waller comes back. That's a lot of targets he can steal from somebody. So that's the only reason I have him this low. But he had an awesome year this year, and with his reception numbers that he was garnering, he was extremely consistent as well. 20, I have Terry McLaurin, another guy who knows who his quarterback's going to be, but he's had a consistent quarterback play basically his entire career. He's one of those guys every year. Everyone's like, oh, Terry McLaurin. But really, it's just similar to DJ Moore, just the way his career path has gone so far. We're just waiting for that quarterback that can really unlock Terry McLaurin's fantasy potential. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. Let me know who you think should be higher, who you think should be lower, all that good stuff. This is an early ranking, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching the video. This is Fantasy Joe. Until next time.